It's my pleasure to moderate this panel, and that's not a panel, it's two people. I guess that's a panel, right, Peter? But they're two great speakers who are going to share with us some of the cool things they're doing, one with green building and green schools, and we're going to talk about solar and the great things that ODU is doing. I've been around long enough to know that Old Dominion had the first LEED certified building in Virginia. And that was out there at the time. And of course now every college, universities, and schools are doing green buildings, and of course the standards just keep pushed out, as Ron and I were talking. Our first speaker is Ron Burrs, B-E-R-Z. And Rob and I have known each other for a long time, and he was one of the founding members of the Hampton Roads Green Building Council. He is now the chairman of that group. And I was one of the first founders of the James River Green Building Council, and we had a lot of interaction, and it was fun. And again, it's fun to be part of something that actually you see it just move forward and become, not standard, but it's getting close. Ron is an architect, and he is with he's a principal with the firm of RM, Sustainable Design Initiatives, with his company. And we were just talking a minute ago about, well, was he kind of looked at kind of weird when he first was pushing green, and not really, but anyway, they moved into a whole new phase. And so it's with pleasure that I present to you Rob Burrs. Rob?
Okay. Thank you, Carl. I'm Rob Burrs, and I'm chair of the Hampton Roads Green Building Council. I'm also the principal of RRMM. And I am presenting this presentation on behalf of Tim Cole, who's a sustainability director with Virginia Beach Public Schools, which is a role model for any school system or any municipality or any large institution. And they've integrated a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and they've developed a baseline of what works for them. So they're a great role model. Tim couldn't be here today. We work closely together. I do work for the Virginia Beach Schools, and he asked that I present this information. So the information you're going to see here, some of you have actually seen some of these before.
You should speak the microphone.
Okay. This information is created by Tim and the sharp people in his office, and a lot of the information is created by the top-notch group of architects, designers, planners, engineers that are local, and they are on board with Virginia Beach Schools. They are on board with the mission of renewables and sustainability. And schools, and the reason schools matter so much is they impact, as you can see here, 70,000 students, 15,000 employees. So many people actually are in these schools for 12 hours a day, 8 to 12 hours a day. And it's 10 million square feet of space. There's a lot of tax dollars. If you pay taxes, which everybody does, it impacts you. Your kids go. How do they, are they healthy? So green schools make a difference in just about everybody's lives. So Virginia Beach Public Schools set up their sustainability goals to, number one, build an infrastructure that's sustainable. Number two, put into practices that are sustainable into everything that they do, maintenance, building, that kind of stuff. And then three, communicate to the public. They're in a position of teaching and communicating not just to students, but to everybody. Now, Virginia Beach Schools understands holistically sustainability. They understand that you don't just, you're not just protecting the natural environment at the expense of society and economics. They all have to go together. And so the school system understands that. Probably about 10 years ago, they started on, a little bit more than 10 years ago, they started on this program. And the first school they did was a school designed by Mosley Architects. Hermitage Elementary is the first LEED certified school in the state. And it was basically a prototype. They put in the LEED rating system and said, hey, we can do this. This is, this doesn't add cost at this point. Let's start, this is our baseline, and then move forward from there. The next school was with a little bit more tangible demonstrations of sustainability, was the Renaissance Academy, which is a LEED Gold building. So you get there, you'll get solar, thermal, photovoltaics, a lot of the daylighting, the first daylighting that you really see in the area on schools. So this diagram you're seeing here is a layout where the site is responding east-west to let in a lot of that natural daylight. You'll see the PV on the top there. And it's really set up to do just that, take in daylighting, PV, respond to the sun. So it's a solar and more than just PV. And the most important thing that schools do is teach. So this type of information is available at the desktop of every one of the students and professors. Actually, anybody can get to it. So they're communicating how much energy they're producing. A big energy drain for the schools is kitchen heating, kitchen water heating. It's the next biggest, next to the HVAC cost. So they said, well, we got free energy here. It's hot here. So we actually get a better bang for our buck with solar thermal panels, basically heating water, than with photovoltaics. The other thing that this school started was collecting rainwater for flushing toilets. They didn't have a big need for irrigating, but they had 170,000 square feet of roof. Let's collect the rainwater, filter it, and send it back into the building. And these processes involved. You've seen the first cisterns were made out of concrete below grade. And this information was, again, put up on the internet and is sent out to the students for curriculum as part of their mission. You know, the idea that UN information says that 1 in 6 people in the world don't have fresh drinking water makes this a compelling case. The idea that schools of 1,000+ people are flushing drinking water down the toilet doesn't make sense. So it really is compelling to collect rainwater. You'll see elements of daylighting in Virginia Beach schools. You'll see the rooftop monitors here, different types. Here's the solar tubes. But it's just daylighting. If we can reduce the energy used by lighting or the heat, not having to cool because of the heat of the lighting, the electric lighting inside, then we're saving money. We're getting the energy use of our building down where PV can come in at some point and be affordable. And again, communication showing how much energy is saved by daylighting, so communicating that to the students. Low flow urinals or no flush urinals or dual flush toilets are starting to be commonplace in the schools. And green roofs. This is the baselines of what Virginia Beach Schools finding is working. The green roofs in this project, 16,000 square feet of it. It's protecting the roof, so you get longer life of your roof. It's got insulating values, it's got acoustical properties, and they just look great. And they bring a lot of natural life to the area. So you see, I mean, you're seeing birds roosting in these, you're seeing all sorts of butterflies and all sorts of things that are good for the natural environment as well. The other side is green cleaning. They're going whole hog in all their schools with green cleaning. There's no reason to have toxic chemicals in these schools where all these people are spending so much time developing drains. And then green guard furniture is important too. So they're adopting rating systems, embedded rating systems. Cool roofs. You might hear a lot of back and forth about should we use cool roofs or not. In the industry, I hear a lot about it. It's a no-brainer. When you got a delta T, when you got a difference in temperature of 80 degrees from a black to a white roof, you go with a white roof because that heat just goes down into the building. And you don't need to be heating buildings in the summer or in the spring and fall. The biggest bang for the buck that the schools are getting with low energy is geothermal. We were estimating conservatively probably 15, 16-year paybacks by doing geothermal HVAC, just because we have to be conservative. Now that's nothing for a 50 to 60-year building. That's what you do. We're getting paybacks now of 4 to 8 years, depending on the system. So again, it's a no-brainer for good stewardship of tax dollars. Virginia Beach Middle was designed by HBA architects, just a couple blocks from here. A great facility, a great use of an existing site. Urban density, it's a big building on a small site. You won't see a lot of big parking lots on this, so they're doing techniques. Urban site and urban and density is a big part of sustainability. And again, this project does a great job of communicating stormwater management to the students, and actually doing it, infiltrating. Like, in the beach area at night, we don't want light pollution. And this school does that and communicates it. Even though it's a tight site, there's a lot of natural vegetation. And they're communicating here the science of acoustics. in the signage here. And being able to hear in a school or to learn in a school, that's all, I mean, a school is only as good as it can teach. And it's communicating sustainable materials. So HBA did a great job of communicating graphically to the students what we're doing in the schools with rapidly renewable materials, recyclable flooring tile, low VOC carpets. That was a LEED Silver building. The Pupil Transportation building was an exciting project. It was designed by Dills Architects. Another great project. It's not a school, but a bus maintenance facility, and it has achieved LEED Platinum, so the highest LEED rating you can get. This building deals with all of its rainwater on site. A 100-year storm could be handled on site, and I'll show you a couple slides that really should talk about that. You've got light-colored paving. You know, it's a bus facility. You're going to have a lot of pavement. Doesn't need to be blacktop. So they said, we'll do it all concrete. And you can see the roof there. The butterfly roof collects all the water there, and they store that underground. And you see about 20,000 square feet of green roof there up in the top. The green roofs, again, are just wonderful. The rain gardens as well that are at grade. You know, when you have a bus facility, you're going to be getting some petrochemicals coming off those buses. It's just going to happen. They designed it so that it flows into these rain gardens and it'll filter out and help break down some of that stuff before it gets into the waterway. And this is a very sensitive site, being so close to the wetlands and so close to the beach. Get another shot of the green roofs. And the water is collected, filtered. It's used for flushing toilets and then also used for washing buses. So just a great use. There's no reason to do drinking water for bus washing.
Or for commodes.
Or flushing toilets, that's right. Here, this was the first project to take solar thermal and put it into the radiant floor for heating. These guys and gals that are working on the buses, rather than do quartz heaters up on the ceiling, they want the heat down where they're working. And so it's free energy. It's free, and it makes a lot of sense. So it's a really comfortable space to work. Again, the data, that's not from this project, but again, the data is being put up on the internet for the students to see. This facility was the first one in Virginia Beach to use wind power. So they're small, they're 3 kW turbines, but it's important. It's a big step because it was affordable, payback is real, and it talks about something that when you do something that's on the cutting edge, a lot of times you're going to run into ordinances or codes, and you got to work with people. And it's not that code officials or city or county attorneys don't want new and great things to happen. It's just they're dealing with old laws and old ordinances. So you got to be prepared to sit down and discuss with the code officials new things. And this was height ordinance. This happened to be a height ordinance. College Park Elementary, this is LEED LEED Platinum, also designed by Dills Architects. Another great facility, about a 100,000 square foot elementary school. Here you see underground stormwater retainage. So you'll see this school is laid out east-west, so it's capturing south light, so it's able to dim its light fixtures when you get enough daylight. This diagram is just, these are the graphics that are shown to the kids. It's really about communicating. Underground cisterns that collects that water, filters it, and sends it back to the toilets or irrigation, exterior irrigation. This is my favorite feature about this school. Not only do they do the stormwater collection and infiltration, but they show it with the building. So right in the center of this school, the sloped roof sends water down to a second roof, which then drops it off to these concrete urns, which then send it through these concentric circles of stormwater filtration. It's beautiful. And so if you're standing in the school and you see out into those concentric circles, then you can actually walk into there. It's this constructed wetlands that filters, it does the job and it teaches, and it's beautiful. So that's what architecture should be like, and that's what we should all be pushing for. Whether it's your home, a school, whether you're involved with an organization or a company that's building, that beauty and inspiration along with the technical side has to happen. And that's what inspires people to want to do this more. Rain gardens, beautiful daylighting. And these are all the baseline things that Virginia Beach schools are. This is just what they do. This particular one, radiant flooring, again, heated by the sun, and low energy elevators. The site was ground up. The old building and old pavement was ground up and reused there on site. Great Neck Middle, LEED Silver pending. Middle school, about 225,000 square feet, designed by Waller, Todd, and Sadler Architects. They get it, they understand. And you see the building down at the bottom, you get a lot of roof there, so it's a lot of light colored surfaces. And a green roof. There's something neat about this green roof I want you to know, is that the school system has a system where a project where they're collecting bottle caps from the kids. Collecting bottle caps and for recycling. Well, they closed the loop here. They actually sent them to a manufacturer who pelletized, got these down, and sold them to another manufacturer of a scrim that goes under the green roof. So it went from the students back into the school, really closing the loop, and I'm really proud of those guys for putting that together. Reflective surfaces, again, trying to not make this heat island, and getting water back into the earth right there on site. And rainwater collection, which we've evolved now. We're not doing the big concrete cisterns anymore, we're doing large culverts underground. A lot of different things. Daylighting, and again, solar hot water, waterless urinals, and LED lighting, and doing no light pollution, and communicating the materials. This is a school that's under construction in Kellam High School. Not too far from here. This is about a 336,000 square foot high school as a replacement. And it's just achieving new heights. So with each school, the school system is doing better and better. It's under construction right now. 108 acres. It's a humongous site. And what they've done here is, if you've got to do dense development, they've done it right. All this parking lot is distributed. It's got planting, so you can get your shading, your pavement. You're also infiltrating your water. They've spread the school out so that it gives you space. It doesn't feel like this massive building. It's just a wonderful way. If you've got to develop 108 acres like that, this is the way to go. I want you to look at the way that this is designed by HBA Architects. Did another great job. They've made this thin here so that you get daylight in from each side. They've actually made the building a teaching tool where you've got gardens on the inside. So it's showing, it's breaking up the building, it's showing the kids everything about science, technology, math that they're going to be needing to learn. These are renderings, and this is a competition. The kids were actually in a competition to design what happened in those gardens. So edible gardens, gathering gardens, infiltration. It's under construction. It should be ready in 2014, fall of 2014. Now that's where the rubber meets the road is cost. And as a taxpayer, sustainability doesn't have to cost more. And in fact, Virginia Beach has just demonstrated that through these 9 projects that you just saw, that their costs are coming in below the average. Below the average. And it's data, it's hard data. And that means something. So as a taxpayer, that means something. Just as understanding these guys know how to do it, they're doing it right. I think you should put faith in the Virginia Beach school system for that. Their square footage has increased 4% over that 10-year period, or since 2006, excuse me. But the energy use has decreased 14%. Great numbers. They're embarked in a serious information gathering. These are just the first numbers to come out from their information gathering on this. And it's really all about this roadmap for student success. And part of that is being able to have globally aware, independent learners, critical thinkers. And so building these buildings that teach those ideas really contributes to the science, technology, engineering, and math program. But again, remember that the school system understands that it's not just the environment at the expense of the others. Ecology and society, they all have to work together. So the term that Tim has created here, eco-pragmatist, really rings true. So you take these LEED projects, and I'll mention something about LEED in a second. You take these LEED projects, you take a checklist, which might be boring to an architect or an engineer. Yeah, we see these things all the time. You go through every one of these categories, and it's curriculum for students. They can take the LEED checklist and put it right into science, technology, right into ecology, any one of those curriculums, math. So their goal is to actually evaluate and then collect the data. and that's a big job. So I will say to you, as you're moving forward with your goals to, I guess, bring a group along, whether it's a civic group or it's an organization, it's a municipality, whoever, you got to bring data to it. And it's got to be digestible data. So there's the data and there's the feel-good side. All right, a word about LEAD. And if you look at the screen, I promise you're going to get dizzy, so I'll stand over here. But in Virginia, there are hundreds of LEED certified projects already. All right? So it's happening, it's done. And LEED is the baseline. It really is a good system. And you'll hear, oh, it costs too much. There's always going to be that contention of people that say, it costs too much. It works, it's a baseline. I'm showing you tried and true systems that are payback within 10 years, 15 years at max on 60-year buildings. These don't even reflect the projects that are in the pipeline, the registered projects. So LEED is the baseline, but I actually encourage, and this is not Virginia Beach School policy, so I'm encouraging you guys to go further. Not just more PV and more bamboo floor. That's very important, but you really have to go to community connectivity, density, walkable communities. When you create a school or anything like a school or a mall or anything like that, it has a big impact on community, and that's where sustainability is supported. So walkable communities is really important. Maybe we need to be developing models of smaller schools. And I know that goes contrary to economy, but somewhere where you can actually walk or bike to school, high school. I know a lot of elementary schools you can, but even the high schools too. We have to be thinking about every school as an opportunity to make sustainable communities. And VB Schools is a great role model. So, thank you.
Fantastic, Rob. I was, for 2 years in a row, I was on a panel to judge submittals by school systems throughout the state. They have a contest in which they, a sustainability contest in which they're doing them, and they're competing with each other. And you kind of expect the Virginia Beaches and the Charlottesvilles and, you know, some of those to be on that list, but people like Nottoway County and, you know, very rural areas are doing incredible things. And often it's the leadership of the superintendent or one teacher or somebody, and they just do incredible things. And so this thing is spreading all over the place. Thank you so much. I was impressed by that list. Yikes.
Yeah,
there was a time when we knew every LEED building in the state, but ain't no more. Well, now, Sylvain, I want to apologize for mangling your name.
That's okay.
I'm from Tennessee, and we didn't learn much French down there. So Sylvain Marcellac, he's an engineer, and he is at Old Dominion University, which I mentioned had the very first LEED building in the state. And he is on an incredible project on solar research. And join me in welcoming him to our panel here.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to apologize for my accent right away. So if you can't understand French, you won't understand me. So
This week, real right into the microphone.
right there.
Here we go.
All right. So I want to talk to you this morning about what we do at Old Dominion University in terms of research and education, specifically on photovoltaics. So I know we have been talking of many other resources, but as a research institute, sometimes we have to focus on one specific topic because we can't just teach, we also have to do research. And it's kind of tricky to do research on all these topics at the same time. So if you are from the area, you know DU, I just put some numbers there. So created in 1969, we have 25,000 students roughly, 1,300 faculty, and bachelor's, master's, and PhD degree, as you can see, up to 41 PhD degree, and $100 million per year of research expenditure. So that's kind of the overview of ODU. We have been creating last week, so you are the first one to know that, the Virginia Institute of Photovoltaics. So it's been approved last week. I've been fighting for that for last year, but as you know, every institution moves slowly. So last week has been approved by the president to create this Virginia Institute of Photovoltaics. So I'm very happy about that. The idea, of course, is to do research, education, and outreach, specifically on PV. and so specifically on photovoltaics. And of course, we talk to our students, but we plan on talking to the federal and state people and industry and general public, which is one of the reasons I'm here. And we already have members from 8 departments and 5 colleges, and of course, that doesn't mean much maybe for people who are not at the university level, but for us it's quite tough to invite someone from arts or letter to come with us, and work with us, or someone from business to say, can you help us develop a business idea on PV? So it's actually quite good we have these 5 colleges working all together on the same goal. So this is our vision. This is where we see ourselves. So we do, as I said, 3 main things. We educate, we do research, and we do outreach. And we have 4 main stakeholders, our students, of course, at ODU, federal and state people, so the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and the state of Virginia mostly, and industry and the public. And for the students, you tend to work from education toward research, and maybe when they go out, they become alumni. Whereas the public, I do outreach first, hopefully interest you in my research, and maybe at a point you're going to take a degree at ODU. So we work both ways, which is why this one arrow goes from the left to the right, and the other arrow goes from the right to the left. No? So we try to work both ways, from the education, research, outreach, and then attract youth outreach and say, come on, let's see what we do in terms of research. All right, I know you all know about solar energy, but as a teacher, I just have to remind you realistically where we are in the world. Basically. So this is from BP, British Petroleum. So I will trust the numbers, 2012 numbers. This is the consumption of energy throughout the year from, you probably don't see, 1996 to 2012. And the colors are, the green one is oil, then natural gas, then nuclear, then hydroelectricity, then coal. Okay? So coal, renewable, you don't even see it. Renewable is this one. This is renewable energy. This is hydroelectricity, which is a renewable but kind of specific. Nuclear energy, gas, and oil. So this is worldwide consumption, and of course it's increasing. Why? Because the world population is increasing. We are 5 going to 7 billion people. The new independent countries like China, India, Brazil, the growing country are consuming more and more energy. So why are we going to consume more? So we need more energy. Do we want to bring in renewable energy? I started working on renewable energy 20 years ago, even though I don't look that old, but 20 years ago, basically, I started to work on renewable energy. And at that time, everybody said, man, oil and gas, yeah, God, next year or 5 years from now, we are it, basically. And 10 years later, as I was a professor, I told my students, yeah, 5 years from now, we're done. So 20 years later, I can promise you, they're not gone. So this thing is again from BP, and again, let's trust them for once. This is the reserve of oil, gas, and coal, okay, divided by the production. So they assume the production is going to increase, and we're going to increase consumption. Even with that, you still have 50 years of oil, 60 years of gas, and that was in 2009 before the fracking happened. So now we are probably have double these numbers, and 120 years of coal, which means even with the growing consumption of energy that we are doing these days, the graph I showed you before, there is still 120 years at this increased consumption of coal reserve. Okay? So keep that in mind when you try to promote renewable energy. Don't say, oh, oil and gas is done. It's certainly not in the US now. You can't say that gas is gone. Everybody says, no, gas is there. With fracking, we're going to go many places. So you can't say that. I mean, you can say it, but people won't believe you. So 2 things I want to say. Renewable will not play, I think, an important role if we don't do a couple of things. Cost breakthrough. So that's where I'm trying to play in, which means we're trying to reduce the cost of renewable energy. Which help, of course, buildings, hopefully when they buy the solar system, try to say, oh, it's not as expensive. Impact of potential problems are priced in, so carbon taxes. So in Europe, it's been done. When the economy goes down, people forget about promises. In the US, it's not there yet, but that's something that could be done. And specific requirement exists. I give this talk to people from the Department of Defense, for example, when you go and you have a base, 50,000 people in Iraq, you need to generate power for them. So this is not a nuclear plant, and you have to bring power. How do you bring power? Actually, renewable energy is the best way to bring power even to these people. All right, consumption of fossil fuel can lead to several problems. We know that. We mostly talk about impact of consumption, the CO2. We forget most of the time the impact of extraction. Fracking can bring that up when the guy is on YouTube and the light is sink. It's like, oh yeah, that's a problem. But if you live next to coal mines, that's not very nice to live around there. So when you talk to people about fossil fuel, don't just say, okay, it's CO2 and things like that. Remember, you want to live near a nuclear plant. I'm a French guy. 95% of our energy comes from nuclear plants. I won't buy a house next to a nuclear plant. And if they try to bring one next to my house, I'm going to fight that. So even though 95% comes from nuclear, nobody wants a nuclear plant next to them. And of course, you look at Chernobyl, 3 Mile Islands. We're lucky every 10 years have a problem. It's a very safe, technology, nuclear energy, but every 10 years, you can see that when it's not safe, well, it's really bad, So Fukushima was a good example of that. When it goes wrong, it really goes really wrong, basically. And of course, uneven distribution of resources, geopolitical tensions. So I'm not going to make political statement, but basically, you go to war because you need resources. Okay? And oil and gas and all these things are resources. If you don't have to take these resources, then you don't go to war. And you save billions and trillions of dollars that you can invest into renewable energy. So that's my non-political statement. All right, so 5 main options, and that's great that Rob talked about all these things that they can do in buildings. I'm not an architect, so I tend to think as an engineer, so I'm really super focused on my things. But still, photovoltaics, wind, biomass, hydropower, geothermals, these are examples, plus of course with passive lighting and things like that. They are examples of what you can do. I tend to think at the utility scale, not necessarily on the building scale. So on the utility scale, if I think 300 megawatts, the realistic one are photovoltaic and wind. Hydropower is great, but rivers are where they are. So once you put a dam, you're done. You can't put another dam, and you don't want to create another river. So that's the tricky part of hydropower. Fantastic, but if you remember my first graph, the blue was not changing much. The reason it's not changing much is because once you put, and even China will put the dam of the Yangtze-Kiang. They just to move 50,000, 100,000 people and just flood the valley. All right, can't do that everywhere, no. So there are countries who won't let you do that. All right, so if I talk about photovoltaics, good numbers, you look at that, this is the south of Nevada, there is nobody there except the dead people from Las Vegas, all right, so nobody is there. 20,000 square kilometers, that's the triangle there. This triangle, if you put that in PV, 25% of electricity in the entire United States would be created by this small triangle there. So I think it's like 5 million acres, so it looks big, but think of it, this is just, there's nobody there, it's just beautiful. There is desert, beautiful sun. You put PV, you have to invest, of course, quite a lot of dollars, but you put PV there for the next 20 years, assuming your system is warranted 20 years. For the same next 20 years, you have 25% of your electricity coming from renewable energy. So when people tell me this is not doable, well, this is doable. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you don't have problem of distribution and you have problem of storage. Okay, but it's doable. I was reading The Economist last night, and they have an article about Germany. And so one of the problems with Germany, they are trying to go all green, thanks to the Green Party. So they have, people say, okay, wind and solar and all these things, we try to do it. So now they have, I think like July or August, 60% of the entire German electricity one day was by renewable energy, in one day. 60% of the entire electricity was coming from renewable. So the problem is that the next day there was clouds, and then all the electricity was coming from France nuclear power plant. So, all right, I love Germans, but at the same time, you can't lie also, you can't say, oh, tomorrow it's going to be gone. No, if you are in a cloudy day with no wind, then what do you have? That's a tricky part. So you have either to develop storage of energy, all right, that's the next big thing, and Harvard or MIT, I think it was MIT 10 years ago, said, oh, we're going to fix the storage things. They have not done it yet, so it's still a big problem. You solve storage. If you are entrepreneurs or startup people, you solve storage, you solve energy. It's not the generation of electricity is the problem, it's how to store it, because any renewable energy is not permanent. My sun is beautiful from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's gone. My wind is good from whatever, 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. mostly, and then it's gone. Right? My geothermal is a bit more stable. But the problem is, if I can't store the energy, my power generation can do that. And Dominion Power, as much as they would like to put that, they can't afford that. They don't like to. But let's assume they would like to. They can't afford it because when I'm going to my house, I switch on my light. I want my power. I don't care if there's sun or not sun. I want my power. All right. For people who are investors, I don't know if there's investors, the PV market has grown 40%, 40, for the last 15 years. There is no other market that has grown that much for the last 15 years. Maybe wind, but I don't know enough about wind. But if you look at the car industry, the computer industry, anything had taken a dip in 2008 when there was a crisis, not the PV market. So it's a good investment. All right, so what do we do at Old Dominion University? We try to do research, and when you talk about research, you have to think from the tiny, teeny nano to the big, big giga. So tiny, teeny means fundamental research, fundamental science. I'm talking, you take one hair, you cut it 1,000 times, and then you cut it another 1,000 times. That's the type of control that we try to have on our layers. So this is really the nanoscale, fundamental science. So we do that at Old Dominion University. Now I make many of these layers, I put them into thousands of my hair, so now I'm a micrometer, I do a device. So now I've got something that is actually a working device. I can take a small 1 square inch things in my lab and I can actually fabricate a device. Then I need to talk to someone and say, right, make this small one into 1 square meter and let me assemble these modules together. I put an inverter, all right, I'm the blue level, I'm at the module and balance of system level. And then I want to integrate that into the grids. I want to talk to people who where to integrate that, so I develop installation, grids, production, and intellectual property. So we try to do all in this specific area, which explains to you why we have so focused on just photovoltaic, because as you can imagine, this is quite large task to do that. Funding, I'm just mentioning for people who are not aware where we get our funding from, the National Science Foundations, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and once you start to talk about balance of system, which means actually a real system, industry and the state actually also give us some money. We are mostly engineers, but we also have people from business, because if you want to develop a business, if you have a new product, how do you put it on the market? You need people from business. And also you need to understand regulations. So you need someone to tell you, you can do that in Virginia, or you can't do that in Virginia. So people from political science will explain to you, these are the regulations you're going to fight. It's always good to have people. So maybe to visualize a bit what I'm talking about, on the right there, this is what we call a highly arrayed nanostructure. So 250 nanometers, so a meter is like that, and then you take a millimeter is like that, and you cut it 1,000 times to go to micron, another 1,000 times to go to nanometer. And we managed to make tubes like that, one after the other, cylindrical tube, one on top of the other. So that's the right pictures there. When you manage to put many of these tubes together, you can make actually a real device, which is these solar cells there. So this is actual devices that we fabricate at Old Dominion, and you can put 2 wires of it under the sun to actually generate power. So what we try to do, we try to make them cheaper or more efficient. We also try to work on the modules. So basically we work with Siemens or other companies to try to say, right, when I've got all these panels together, how can I make the power more efficient? Right? Can I work on the inverter to make it more efficient? So the power electronics basically. And then the last one, this is a picture of my students on the roof of Kaufman Hall, on the right there. And we installed the first tracking system in, I think in actually entire US, basically at university. So this is a system that actually tracks the sun. You know, so it's not just a fixed system, but it tracks the sun. And that's actually on the roof of Kaufman Hall. So if you come on at ODU, you have to stand around on the parking lot quite far away, and you can see on the roof of Kaufman Hall, you receive a tracking system that moves and tracks the sun. So this is a 6 kilowatt system that goes into the grid, so we generate actually our own power. And we also have an agreement with Dominion Power to install 150 kilowatts of solar panels on the roof of the rec center at ODU. So that's upcoming basically. So that's on our research side. Of course, research will not be done without students. You know, I'm spending my time at my desk writing papers and writing reports, so the one who work actually are my students in the lab. We have 2 types of students, undergraduate and graduate students. So if you're an undergraduate student at Old Dominion University and you want to work on renewable energy, you can, either through our senior design projects or special topics. We have some first-year freshman students who want to work. We have special topics research just for them. And of course, our graduate students, you know, masters and PhD students do research funded by, you know, the department I mentioned. I thought we were talking more about education, so I put some stuff about education here. Education, what is important are many things. So of course they build the system, they maintain the system, they operate the system, but also we try to tell them how to purchase something. You know, you have 2 types of systems, or you're just going to purchase copper wire. How to choose that? That doesn't seem to unlock a lot, but when they're going to have a work, that's very important. Writing reports, safety handling, and of course management, team management. So the senior student is actually managing all the junior students or undergraduates. So we try to do that. Partnership is critical, as we will provide the opportunity for the students to get a job. So we try to, at least in our groups, to have a good balance between fundamental research and applied research. You know, fundamental research, most of these people get a PhD and then get in national labs or high, you know, R&D place at companies. The applied research, our students find positions as engineers, for example, in Dominion Power or, you know, other companies like Siemens and things like that. And how do we judge if we are successful or not is by our external funding, at least that's our administration judge it. The papers we write, the patents we write, and of course, if our students graduates and are successful as alumni. The more successful alumni we have, the more successful we will be as a university. I'll go back to here, so this was mostly about the research. Let me talk to you about the other part of what we do is education, of course. So with the VIPV, with this Virginia Institute of Photovoltaics, we want to create the new generation of PV specialists. And as I mentioned, that can be all the way to graduate program and researchers, also for installers, electricians, find a place where you can come and say, all right, if I want to become an installer, where do I go? So we're going to try to partner with community colleges, for example. I know they're already doing that in the area, and I want to collaborate with them. And of course, educating the students, the general public like you, the legislature, talking to your representative from Richmond and say, look, PV is nice, this is a good business thing. This is not just green people, this is also people who can make money. And I know people don't like that most of the time, it's like, let's be pure. Well, if you are pure, you get nobody to support you. So you have also to mention, as Rob said, these LEED buildings are cheaper. Doing PV saves you money. So if you start talking to people about that, they're going to invest. And from my point of view, if I talk to the Department of Defense and they say, I'm going to give you $1 million to develop PV, I don't feel bad about that. Even if it's the Department of Defense, I'm developing PV for them. So that's for me, that's a good thing. Of course, undergraduates also, we have a new course. We try to involve theory, virtual learning, and a hands-on experience. So that's kind of something new funded by the NSF, where we don't just say, here is the materials, here is the lab. We try to kind of bridge the two and say, all right, if you're not understanding what is an electric field or magnetic field, let's try to simulate one. Let's see, visualize how it works, and then you can do an experiment about it. Interdisciplinary teaching is very important to me. I've got an undergraduate in physics and chemistry. I've got a PhD in material science, and I'm teaching electrical engineering. So as you can guess, I'm quite interdisciplinary by myself, and I think that's one of my strengths. Sometimes it's a weakness, but one of the strengths is to be able to understand the problem from different points of view. So I try to teach that to my students. And peer mentoring is another thing we're trying to develop also. Students tend to listen more to each other than to you. So at a point, if you want to advise them, the best way is to say, hey, talk to your friend, he's going to tell you what you should do. And sometimes peer pressure is actually better in both sense. Bad sense, peer pressure is bad, but good, so in a good sense, hey, you didn't do your homework, you promised us 1 more point if we do our homework. So just a note on that. Last year, we have student survey at the end of the year. Nobody wants to, no students care about that. They are supposed to judge us. So most of the time, the 5 students who hate you out of 40 do the student survey, and nobody else does it. And of course, the pro is like, oh, you have bad survey. What is that? So last year, what I did, I tell the students like, if all of you do your survey, the 40 of you do your survey, I give you 1 more point in your average. But don't do math, so you don't understand, it's just a very tiny point. But let's see, I say 1 more point in your average, if you all do your survey. I got 40 survey out of 40. All the students, and I knew the students who had the lowest grade, who normally don't do anything, they were going up, the others like, did you do a survey today? Because he said you didn't do a survey. So peer pressure works, So there is a way to do that, where you say, hey, if everybody does his homework correctly, I'll give you 1 more point. I mean, just to say, that's one thing I'm trying to do in my class, to do differently, basically. Peer mentoring and just saying, hey, talk to each other, make each other work more, basically. All right, I don't want, so in graduates is the same thing. We are trying to develop, so that's inside my lab on the power electronics side. So we actually, the power comes in, goes to inverters, goes to the fuse box, of course, but we also can use this power to do some analysis. We're going to try to develop a master and a PhD program in electrical engineering with a focus on PV. So that's one of my plans in the next 2 or 3 years. We already have 5 or 6 out of all these courses. We need to develop more of these courses, basically. Probably I'm going to talk to you about systems integration and PV system. I think people who are architects are probably better suited than us to teach these things. And the same thing for undergraduates. I want to develop a bachelor in electrical engineering with a focus on photovoltaics. So most of the course already exists, power system, electromagnetics, but specific course, fundamental solar cells, photovoltaic system, green business management, things like that. Outreach, well, that's why I'm here to talk to you. I'm trying to tell you that ODU does something, that we need people to do more, that we need to have people who are educated. And the more you educate people, the more they understand that it's good. And I think that's extremely good that high school students are educated, because then when they become voters or they become actually citizens, they say, oh, I should do that either in my house or for my company and things like that. So we're trying to do the same thing. Of course, as a university, we try to get recognition from the state and also national recognition as a center of photovoltaics, basically, which we are doing right now. Just to show you a fun picture. So this is inside the clean room. So we have 3 or 4 things. So that's a clean room with all my students. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do anything. And my sponsors, without them, I wouldn't be able to do anything. Thank you for the attention.